Hi, everyone. Hope you had a great weekend. Today, we're going to talk about brain health and feeling good because a lot of us are confused out there and we think sometimes that we're depressed or, we may be a little bit depressed, but not enough to call ourselves or behave like people who are depressed. At the same time, many a times we look for things to make us happy externally all the time because we're not feeling good. So we're not feeling good sitting at home, and then we feel that, maybe an outdoor trip will make us feel better, or eating something with carbs or sugar will make us feel better. So I think it's very important for us to understand how the brain works when it comes to your feelings. We have different hormones, we have different neurotransmitters, and all of it comes down to the kind of energy that you feed them. So if you've ever wondered, all the food that you eat, you had your breakfast, you had your lunch, your dinner, around 20% of that food, 20% of that energy is consumed by your brain, sometimes even more, depending on the kind of job you have, depending on how much you think. If you're an overthinker, if you're going through a lot of chronic stress where you're constantly thinking, you're using brain power. You've got to understand that thinking happens within the brain. And anything that happens requires power and it requires energy. So from the food that we eat, proteins go towards the muscle, carbohydrates create energy for us, calcium goes towards the bones, vegetables and fruits go towards supporting the immunity and different organs in the body. And a lot of this energy, a whole cocktail of vitamins and minerals, are required by your brain to produce something called chemical neurotransmitters. We all hear of neurological health. We talk about nerves, we talk about the nervous system. We have neurons that perform an action, but these actions are controlled by neurotransmitters, chemical messengers, like hormones in the human body. Estrogen communicates for certain actions to happen. Testosterone communicates for building muscle. A lack of testosterone will signal to break down muscle. So these are all chemical messengers, hormones in the body and in the brain. They're called neurotransmitters. So basically, neurotransmitters are chemical messengers that allow or direct neurons what action to take. So if I tell you right now, lift your little finger, in a nanosecond, less than a nanosecond, you hear my instruction of lifting your little finger and you can lift it. How did this happen? How did the action of your little finger lifting, how did that happen? You heard, okay? So there was sound, it formed a thought in your mind. Okay, that thought triggered off neurotransmitters, okay, that in a nanosecond or less, okay, allowed your neurons to perform the action. So you have neurons which are waiting to perform an action, but they're waiting for direction by your chemical messengers called neurotransmitters. So technically, communication response could be for muscle action. If I tell you to run, I tell you to sit, I tell you to do a crunch, I tell you to do jumping jacks. All of these require action and communication between the neurotransmitters and the neurons. Your digestion, even your digestion is controlled by neurotransmitters. Okay, when to start digesting the food. Okay, when we have saliva, saliva stimulates enzymes. These are all messengers, all chemical messengers that control every single function of the body, including your breathing. Your breathing is controlled by neurotransmitters. And sleep, when to sleep, how deeply to sleep, when you should wake up. So if you actually pause and reflect for a while, the incredible human machine, every action, every time you look out, you see something, you blink your eye, you move a finger, you scratch your hair, whatever it is, cannot happen if you don't have the right neurological health. So neurological disorders, like you see with Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, where people cannot facilitate certain movements, they forget what to do. All of these are your neurotransmitters not corresponding the right way with your neurons. So the mind wants to perform an action, but you can't perform that action because there's a breakdown in the neurological system between the neurotransmitter and the neurons. So what else does neurotransmitters control? Productivity, creativity, memory, the ability to learn. So when you go into children, slow learners, fast learners, all of this, today in today's world, you just medicate the child. You medicate a person who has ADHD. You'll medicate a slow learner. You put them into a bucket of autism. Or I'm not against all of that stuff, but I'm saying there's a lot beyond that. There's a lot beyond that. Just putting them in a bucket and letting them evolve that way without looking at the possible root causes, which involves the health of the neurotransmitters and the neurons, is very, very wrong. There are so many children today who have come to us where they've been put in an autistic bucket. And for us, they were just slow learners. Their milestones were delayed. And we never treated them with autism. We never assumed that they were autistic children. We made dietary changes, got them off gluten, got them off inflammatory foods that affect the neurons in the brain. We checked their D3 levels, their B12 levels. And slowly the children, some of these children hit their milestones a year later and a year later. But guess what? They never turned out to be autistic. So my whole point when it comes to integrative medicine, you want to address the root cause of the problem, and it can go to the depth of looking at the health of your neurotransmitters. Your neurotransmitters are also important for empathy, for sympathy. It is important for understanding and learning. So many of us come across people who, you never understand. That person has no empathy. That person doesn't understand me. Emotional flaws in people, and we blame them. We rip apart their personalities. We rip apart their characters. But guess what? Some of these people don't have neurotransmitters functioning the right way. They don't know how to understand. They don't know how to be empathetic. They don't know how to respond in the way that you want them to respond to the way you respond to things. So something may make you laugh. It doesn't make someone else laugh. It's a difference of neurotransmitters. Okay, but we think that, oh, this person is not humorous, and we label them and we move them out of our social circle. We judge them. But today, by the end of the session, you're gonna understand why we should never judge people and why we should be compassionate to people. And of course, you have your own set of on the planet who don't know empathy, even though they can feel emphatic. They don't know understanding because they're just too filled with anger and hate and all of that stuff. So there's that population of people as well. We shouldn't get confused about that. My point is, let's start with understanding neurotransmitters. We've all heard of serotonin or serotonin. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter. When you have enough of it, what is the responsibility of serotonin? A feeling of well-being, a feeling of happiness. How many times in your life have you found, or you've heard people say, oh, I have everything, but I just don't feel happy. I feel empty inside. I don't feel good at all, but they have everything and they don't know. It's okay now. You may not be feeling good because your relationship is going through a rough phase, or your salary got cut, or your health isn't good. You know the reason. So that's not a problem with your serotonin. That you have a real issue in your life. But when you don't have that reason, you got to look at serotonin, a neurotransmitter which is less in your system. If you have less serotonin, you cannot feel happy. You don't feel a sense of well-being. So it's important for us to figure out how to maintain serotonin in your life. Then we have dopamine. Everyone's heard about dopamine. Dopamine is required for us to feel pleasure, to motivate us. It's also called a motivation molecule. Without dopamine, we won't feel motivated. How many times have you seen people that no matter how much you motivate them, they still don't get motivated to get up and go to work, to do a job, to sit down and study? So we label them, we call them lazy, but they could be very, very low on dopamine. And without dopamine, no matter what you do, the person will not feel motivated and they cannot feel pleasure in things. So like I said, small things may make you happy, but for someone else, it may take a lot to make them happy. These people have low dopamine levels. No matter what, you cannot judge them because their neurotransmitter, which is responsible for motivation and feeling pleasure, is less in their body. So when you look into a patient who's depressed, they usually have an imbalance or less of serotonin and dopamine, or either or. That's why the psychiatrist or the psychologist will arrange medication to rebalance their serotonin or dopamine. Or in schizophrenia or bipolar patients, that's where medication comes in to create that balance. But at the end of today's call, you'll see the reason why we shouldn't just jump into medication without trying a couple of things first. So dopamine. Then we have GABA. Without GABA, without the neurotransmitter GABA, it's very difficult for us to focus and to feel calm. People with low GABA are all over the place. They're doing one thing in front of another because they get a little bit of dopamine increase, they get a little bit of focus, but they can't keep it focused on one activity. Okay, they're not hyperactive, they're not ADHD, they just have a deficiency in GABA. They're unable to focus and they're unable to feel calm. So you see a hyperactive child running all over and you think like, calm down, calm down. They're not calm down, so they get labeled as ADHD, hypertensive, and then you have big, big, big problems with that. So a lot of people say, I can't meditate, I can't be calm, I can't close my eyes and sit down, there are thoughts running in my head. Could be a deficiency in GABA. And because you don't have that neurotransmitter, your brain cannot help you feel calm or focused. Acetylcholine, this is what we require for muscles, muscle action, reactions. So if I jump in front of you right now, what is your reaction going to be? You're crossing the road and a car comes by. What is your reaction speed? Can you jump out of the way? Do you get hit by the car? Your creativity, all of this is controlled by acetylcholine, which is a neurotransmitter. If you have less of it, you have very slow muscle speed reaction. And you can see this in progressive diseases like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementias, certain ASLs, and all of that stuff. So again, you can treat the symptom, but you got to get to the root cause of, do we have the right amount of neurotransmitters? Then we have glutamate. Glutamate is required for learning and memory. And a lot of children take time to develop this, adults as well, glutamate. If we don't have this neurotransmitter, it's very difficult for someone to focus on learning or to have a good memory. So today, even as we age, these neurotransmitters can be compromised because of very poor diet, sleep deprivation, sedentary lifestyle, chronic stress. They can cause an imbalance in all of these neurotransmitters. And then you have the symptoms of what I just spoke about. But then we start getting a treatment for the symptom. We never really get better because the root cause was an imbalance caused because of our lifestyle or diet. In some cases, of course, it's a real chemical imbalance, like certain schizophrenias, bipolars, all of that stuff. The patient needs medication from day one. But most people, their lifestyles have abused their neurological health. And they have this imbalance in serotonin, dopamine, GABA, acetylcholine, and glutamate. Okay, there are a couple of more hormones that we're going to talk about, but now let's understand. So when neurotransmitters are present in you, they are present in all of us. In balance, we feel good automatically. Doesn't mean we won't have a bad day. Doesn't mean that something won't make us feel sad. But most of the time, we feel good because all our neurotransmitters are firing with our neurons and resulting in an emotion and an action of usually feeling good. When we have an imbalance in all of these neurotransmitters, a lot of heavy medication as well, which is why I always ask your doctors the side effects of any drugs that you get on. Sometimes medications drive you into depression because they cause an imbalance in your serotonin and dopamine, but you're not depressed. It's caused by your medication. And the side effects of those medications have to be handled the right way. So technically, let me make it simple. If neurotransmitters are the engines of the brain, okay, the fuel for these engines is your food. Everything that you eat breaks down into amino acids, vitamins, minerals, which is either the right cocktail for your neurotransmitters or it's the wrong cocktail. Today, you're also going to understand why we get so addicted to sugar and children get so addicted to junk food. Okay, so each neurotransmitter, serotonin, dopamine, whatever we spoke about, requires its own different cocktail of vitamins and minerals, which means that is why we have to eat a diverse diet. We can't put ourselves into a box of the same food every day or into a fad diet because guess what? We deprive our neurotransmitters of the cocktail of vitamins and minerals they require. When you get onto these fad diets that stop you from eating fruits or they limit certain starches or limit nature, you may lose weight. Who cares? Who cares if you lose weight but you're depressed at the end of the day? Who cares if you lose weight but you can't feel happy? We want to lose weight and feel happy as well. But most people who lose weight with fad diets feel sad. They feel deprived. You should speak to them. They're always low, always depressed, very snappy. So that's because their neurotransmitters don't have the right amount of energy and fuel, which is why when you're losing weight, lose it the right way. Do not interfere with your neurological health because serotonin, dopamine, all of these things is not just for you to feel good. It controls every single action in the human body, from lifting that little finger to what I said, memory, learning, creativity, empathy, understanding your emotions and everything else, which is why health should be done the right way and not the wrong way. Okay, so the food that you eat contributes to how good you feel. So now a shallow person will say, hey, Luke, then I can eat junk food because junk food makes me feel good. So let me break that myth right there. Okay, junk food is made up of a lot of MSG, a lot of salt, and a lot of sugar. These ingredients are known by food companies to cause addiction. That's why they put it in all of those foods, so that you eat more and more of it. And you always remember the taste of a KFC burger or the McDonald's French fries. You can't forget that taste. It's in your mind. It's built as an addiction because those sugar and salt and MSG are neuroexciters. They excite your neurotransmitters. That's why you feel so good and you want more and more and more of it. That's how addiction is built. So when you look at the brain of an alcoholic or someone on cocaine or heroin or someone who has an addiction to junk food or sugar. These are all neurotransmitters. And when your brain gets used to the feeling of feeling good, you only want more and more. Because remember, every human being is wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain. No matter who you are, your body and your mind is designed to seek pleasure and avoid pain. Okay? So the more pleasure your body gets and your mind gets, the more and more it wants. That's how addiction works. Today, alcohol makes you happy. Tomorrow, the same quantity doesn't make you happy anymore because guess what? You need more. The same thing with drugs and cigarettes and sugar and shopping and everything else. So all of these are neuroexciters. And then what happens is, if we have too much of dopamine or too much of serotonin, it's still an imbalance. It can still cause more problems. So you would say that, hey, Luke, so serotonin and dopamine make us feel good, so we should have more and more of it. No, you need a balance of it. If you have too much of it, in schizophrenia and bipolar, it is too much of dopamine and also too less of it. So you see, you have mood swings, ups and downs, ups and downs. That is why nature is balanced. You are balanced. Everything that you do has to be in balance. Extremes do not work. It's as simple as that. So let's break it down into serotonin. 95% of serotonin is made in the gut, which is why a lot of people who are depressed have very poor guts, and only by fixing their gut health, they start to feel better and happier. A lot of people who are sad and depressed or feel heavy, they suffer from something called brain fog. That brain fog is nothing but a poor gut. You have too much of bad bacteria in your gut and very less of the good bacteria. So serotonin is made in your gut. And if your gut is not clean enough or strong enough or healthy enough to make serotonin, guess what? You have less serotonin, which means you have less abilities to feel happy, a sense of well-being and all of that stuff. No amount of anything can change that. You can shop, you boost your dopamine a little bit and your serotonin so you feel happy while you shop. But the moment the shopping experience is over, you'll have a dip because you still need the neurotransmitter serotonin. Now, serotonin is made from an essential amino acid called tryptophan. Okay, remember I spoke about amino acids? So if you don't have the right amino acids in your body, like tryptophan, you can't make serotonin. You can't go and buy a pill for serotonin. It doesn't exist. You see, most people today are popping pills and supplements and eating more of a food that they Google, which is good for their health. But we don't understand that food is synergy. It has to get synthesized in the body. Okay, it's got to work with certain precursors. So like serotonin requires tryptophan. Where do you get tryptophan from? Tryptophan is an amino acid that comes from the food that we eat. It is an essential amino acid. Now, where can we find tryptophan and in turn serotonin? Let me read out those foods. Bananas. But today everyone is, oh, Luke, bananas have sugar. Bananas make me fat. You'd rather be a little bit fat and happy than skinny and depressed. Okay, and firstly, bananas do not make you fat. Okay, you got to break away from all these fats. Bananas is one of the highest sources of tryptophan. That will help you boost your serotonin, and it's also great for your gut. We have pineapples. We have all of your nuts, which are unsalted and uncooked, basically. So you're talking about your cashew nuts, you're talking about almonds, you're talking about hazelnuts, macadamia, walnuts. All of the nut families are rich in tryptophan. We have certain fruits, like I mentioned, pineapple, bananas, and even kiwis. Tofu is also rich in tryptophan. Eggs, the yolk and the white together, is a complete amino acid. That amino acid will give you the essential amino acid tryptophan, which your gut will use to make serotonin. And you have cheese as well, in the form of paneer or fresh cheeses, not processed cheese. So you see the importance of a balanced diet, because without this, now let's say half the people doing extreme diets will not allow them to eat bananas, pineapples, kiwis, and cheese, and they'll tell them not to eat the egg yolk as well. What do you have? A massive, massive deficiency of energy for your engines, which are your neurotransmitters, period. Your emotions, mood swings, all of that stuff is going to start happening. Let's move straight into dopamine. Dopamine is made from an amino acid called tyrosine. Okay? You can't just buy a dopamine pill. There are ways. Scroll down social media, your dopamine levels go up. Play a video game, your dopamine levels go up. Go shopping, your dopamine levels will go up. You know, achieve something in life, get a reward, your dopamine levels will go up. But finally, dopamine is a neurotransmitter. It needs energy. Where does that energy come from? Food. It comes from food. The outside things I mentioned are stimulations, but it needs to be created within the human body. It's made from tyrosine. Where do you get tyrosine? Avocados, chocolate. Why do most women crave chocolate during their period cycle? Because it makes them feel good. They don't feel good because there's a fluctuation in their hormones. Okay, your estrogen, progesterone, massive fluctuation. Emotions, you feel sad, you feel low, you feel whatever it is that you feel. Chocolate makes you feel better because chocolate is rich in tyrosine. Tyrosine will produce dopamine. Dopamine makes you feel happy. You find it in yogurt, you find it in spinach, you find it in almonds, and you find it in the seed family. Pumpkin seeds, watermelon seeds, sunflower seeds, all of these things together. So you see, when you're eating a balanced diet, you need it for dopamine. Fad diets are the most destructive things for your neurological health. That's why most people, you never see them happy on a fad diet. Never. They are crawling through it, complaining, feeling miserable about themselves. They lose a little bit of fat that makes them happy a little bit, but then they eat something and they put all the weight back on. Vicious cycle, doesn't work. Okay? So food affects how we feel, period. Food affects how we feel. We eat too much of junk food, we're going to feel good for 5, 10, 15 minutes, maximum 30 minutes. But once those neurotransmitters, which got excited with your salt and sugar and all the deep fried stuff, that neurotransmitter stops, the excitement reduces, nothing lasts forever. And then it vibrates at a very, 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 very low frequency where you actually feel so low that you want more of what made you happy, which is pasta fries on. Let's have another burger. Let's have something more with sugar. Let's load up on the carbs. You see, it's like a drug, addiction. Okay? So sometimes when you wake up in the morning, days that you can't think straight, you know, you just can't think straight, even though you may have slept well at night. You snap easily. You're getting irritated with everyone else. You got to look at the food that you ate. You got to look at the food that you're eating. You got to look at your caffeine intake. Did you overdo it on caffeine? Because caffeine is a neuro-exciter again. That's why we all love coffee. It makes us feel so good. And so some people go on having it every 1 or 2 hours. But after a while, coffee can no longer produce that effect. It can no longer produce that effect because you literally caused adrenal fatigue. Okay? Now you have a crash. You have such a crash. From a high, you came to a low. And coffee can't lift you up anymore. And then you start feeling snappy and irritable, and you get the jitters and all of that stuff. So how you feel is dependent on what you consume in terms of your food and your beverages. So it's not just food for your neurotransmitters. It's also your sleep. If you're sleep deprived, your serotonin, your dopamine, everything is going to be haywire. And most of you will relate to that when you're sleep deprived. Sedentary lifestyle as well. For food to break down effectively, for it to be carried to every part of the body, including across the blood-brain barrier, you require exercise. If you're sedentary, poor neurotransmitter health, as simple as that. And stress levels, of course. If I'm constantly thinking about something sad, okay, I'm utilizing more and more of my neurotransmitters, okay? Until they can replenish themselves, I'm going to be very, very low. So that's why when it comes to our thinking and our stress and our emotions, we got to face them at some point in life. We can't keep pushing them down. And at the same time, we can't dwell on things that are not going well for us, because we get into that spiral where we constantly keep burning brain energy in the negative. So we have more and more imbalance of dopamine, serotonin, and every other neurotransmitter. And then after a while, we have such a low that we need medication to feel better. So that's how your brain works. Now, what we need to understand, the demands on our brain have increased over time. 10 to 15 years ago, there was no internet. There was no so much of what we have today. So the brain could deal with what came into it. Today, the amount of content that we consume, the amount of opinions that we see on social media, there's 24/7 news that we're consuming from news channels. There are emails, there are multiple projects we put ourselves into, multiple businesses, job stress, all of that. The demand on the brain is so much, so much. So what consumption goes up? What feeds the engines, which are the neurotransmitters? Food, that energy. If we don't increase that energy, the quality and the quantity, okay, our brain cannot keep up to the demand, which means we automatically get deficient in all of the neurotransmitters. And when we're deficient in all of the neurotransmitters, you already know, because I explained to you the responsibility of every neurotransmitter. You already know how you're going to feel. None of the material things in the world can fix that. It has to be fixed from within, which is your food. So do you have slumps during the day? And if you've just been getting through with coffee, after a while, that's not going to work for you anymore. Then you start with Red Bulls. That's not going to work for you anymore. You got to fix it with food. Food that will make more tyrosine. Food that will make more tryptophan so that you have more serotonin and dopamine automatically. Caffeine doesn't do that. Enjoy your coffee. But when you feel you become addicted to it and reliant on it, it is also messing up your neurotransmitters in a huge way. In a huge, huge, huge way. So we got to remember that. Now, stress, short-term stress is great for us. It's great for our neurotransmitters. It's great for our immune system, but it's the chronic stress that drains us of dopamine and serotonin. So the more chronic stress you have, the lesser residues of dopamine and serotonin you have. And that's why you have all the feelings that come with chronic stress. And sometimes your problem may be this small, okay? But it gets magnified more and more in your mind because you don't have enough of serotonin and dopamine to help you with that. So if you want to feel better, okay, it is the food that you feed yourself, period. I pity all the children out there whose parents give them junk food more than required. I know they're kids, give them a little bit of junk, but if you've made it a mandate, you can understand the neurological damage you are doing to them. And then one fine day after you fed them junk food for 2 to 3 years, you suddenly decide that let me discipline them into eating straight. They're not going to give a shit about you, literally. And they shouldn't have to because their brains are addicted. They may want to listen to you. They may understand what you're saying, but the addiction is so powerful. Most adults out here suffer from an addiction of sugar and salt. How do you expect your children to break it? Which is why we say, do not get them into the trap in the first place. You have to be strict about junk food because it affects their moods. How many juvenile kids today, how many young kids are in depression? How many young kids have counselors and psychologists and psychiatrists? Few of them genuinely need it because they have genetic disorders, they have real chemical imbalances, but the rest, they don't even have normal neurological health because of their food habits. Who's responsible for that? The parents. Yes, you out there, us, the parents. We have caused that neurological dysfunction in them by giving them something that we know is bad for them. So now it's never too late. We got to change it right there. You need to know that the food lobbies don't give about your health or your kids' health. Their job is to sell. Their job is to make money from you. Your hard-earned money is paying them to destroy your health and your child's health. Do you get it? It's as clear as that. Okay, and then parents bring their children to us and all of that stuff. My child is suffering. And half the time I want to look the parents in the eyes and tell them they suffer because of you. You have done a disservice to them. Every parent knows. Every parent out there knows that junk food is a poison for adults as well as children. But which one of them are making the change? So then when sickness strikes, feel guilty about it. You must feel guilty about it because you are part of it. That's the only way I can motivate you, out of feeling guilty yourself, in the hope that you will make a change out there for yourself as well as for your children. So before you jump onto medication or you put other people onto medication, look at their food and their lifestyle. Most people will only need a balance of their neurotransmitters to be corrected. Instead of going down that whole stream of medication and stuff, I'm not against medication. I just said, before you jump onto it, look inside, look at your dietary habits, look at your sleep, look at your exercise, and look at your emotional wellness. Take counseling before you see a psychiatrist, okay? See if a counselor can help you balance out your emotions before you put yourself onto a drug that can do it for you. But that drug doing it for you would be useless with all the side effects if you didn't take care of the basics, which is your food, your exercise, your sleep, and your emotional wellness, which is your lifestyle. So sugar and salt are neuroexciters. So is caffeine. So is MSG. That's why we all love Chinese food. They all tell you no MSG added to the food, but all the bottle sauces that you see to the see-through kitchens and even the 5 stars all contain MSG. They're legally right to say that they don't add it to their food, but all your food is being cooked in Chinese sauces, and that's why you love it. That's why your brain wants more and more and more and more of it. Compare it to Indian food. We enjoy Indian food, but we're not so crazy over it like Chinese food. Why? There's no MSG in Indian food. It's as simple as that. You won't go craving on apples and oranges because there are no additives put into that. But you take a packet of apple chips or apple cereal, you will love it, and so would your kids, because it's designed to get you addicted to it. So I hope you understand that very, very clearly. All the people who cut out fat from their diet because they think they're going to lose weight, so they cut out all fat, they do oilless cooking, you're just messing up your health, your mood, your hormones, and everything, including your organ health. Your neurotransmitters require energy from fats. Fats like MCTs, especially coconut oil and pure ghee, have the ability to nourish your brain. There are certain fats that work for the brain, certain fats that work for the human body. That's why people on keto diets or people in ketosis, they don't feel hungry. They feel energized because they have MCTs that are broken down from the coconut oil in their livers to nourish their brain. So do not go fat-free. That is a fad that is extremely dangerous. If you want to age quickly and look old, even when you're young, you want your hair to fall out, you want your skin to wrinkle up, the simplest way to do it is go off fat. Okay, it's like that. So we were talking about acetylcholine, which is required for your muscle reactions, productivity, creativity. We find that in beans, green beans, rajma, chana, fine, green peas, radishes, spinach, strawberries, and again, eggs, the whole egg. So you see, when we eat a balanced diet, we are getting these in small quantities. Neurotransmitters require them in very, very small quantities. GABA was for focus and for feeling calm. Where do you find it? In non-genetically modified, that's non-GMO soy products, mushrooms, rice. Why does rice make most of us feel so good? A lot of Indians say, take away anything, but don't take away my rice. Because rice breaks down, when it's mixed with dal, it's a complete amino acid. It breaks down into essential amino acids that produce tryptophan, that makes us feel good, tyrosine, that makes us feel happy. So you see, that's why a lot of people are addicted to rice, but eat it the right way, mix it with a lentil, don't overeat it, and don't eat it if you're sedentary with your lifestyle. So like a khichdi is a complete amino acid. A full egg is a complete amino acid, the yellow and the white. You find it in potatoes. That's another food all of us love, but everyone's scared of potatoes because, oh, it's starch. Starch makes you fat. Starch doesn't make you fat. That's ridiculous. People with diabetes may have to be a little bit careful with it and all of that stuff. But look at the farmers. Look at the farmers of the diet. Most of the diet of farmers, most of them have better bodies than most of us. They're ripped. The women, you can't see an ounce of fat on their bodies. Lean, slim bodies. They work in the fields. They eat simple foods. Rice, dal, bakri, jowar, potato, and all of that stuff. High carb, high starchy foods, active lifestyles, happy people. And way better bodies than most of the gym rats out there sipping protein shakes, branched chain amino acids, popping supplements all the time. We should learn from simplicity. We should learn from reality. Okay, so that's why rice makes you happy. You'll find GABA in fermented foods, which is also good for your gut. So you see, fermented foods help us maintain the right microbiome. If we have the right microbiome, we can produce serotonin, which makes us feel happy and makes us feel good. So questions you need to ask yourself right now, self-diagnosis. How do you feel? If you find symptoms like you can't focus, you have low libido, you know, so many men and women, low libido, they come and ask for pills, they want Viagra, they want stimulants and all of that stuff. First, look at your food and your lifestyle. None of that stuff works. Of course it works. Viagra works. We know that it works. With every possible side effect, from a psychological breakdown, the heart, to everything else. Look at your food and look at your lifestyle before you start looking for quick fixes. So how do you feel? No focus, low libido. These are all instances showing you that your dopamine, serotonin is in imbalance and you need to fix it. So it comes down to your exercise, your food, your sleep, and your emotional wellness. You need diversity. You saw every neurotransmitter requires diversity from different foods. That is why make your diet and nutrition diverse. In a week, you should have had different fruits, different vegetables, different grains, different sources of protein. If you eat the same thing every day, you are not getting diverse nutrition, which is required for your neurotransmitters. So I give you an example. Dopamine. Low dopamine could be found in Parkinson's. High dopamine could be found in schizophrenia. So we don't need too much. We don't need too little. We need the right quantity. The right quantity can be determined by how we feel. Today we blame people that, oh, you make me feel this way. You make me feel that way. Guess what? You may just be having an imbalance of your neurotransmitters. Maybe that person is causing some discomfort in your life, but it's all magnified in your mind because you don't have serotonin and you don't have the right amount of dopamine in your system. So we got to fix that before we start blaming the world for how we feel and before we start labeling ourselves and putting ourselves into the corner of a victim. Okay, so amino acids, like I said, tyrosine, tryptophan, all of them are amino acids. We find them in complete proteins like khichdi, rajma rice. When you mix rajma and rice, eggs, hummus. Hummus with pita bread is a whole beautiful combination of amino acids. So you see, these are complete amino acids and there are staple diets. You find all these amino acids. Now, some people, you get essential and non-essential. Some amino acids are made by the body. Some of them we get from our food, which is why we need a combination of both of them. Okay. Another tip to maintain your neurotransmitter health. Again, it comes down to fasting. Try to maintain a 10-hour window of eating, which means plan your fasting in such a way. If you can't do 10 hours, at least 12 hours. So 12 hours or 10 hours in a day is where you get all your calories in your food. The balance, 12 or 14 hours, you're not eating anything. You're just drinking water. Fasting helps you with neurons, with your neurological health. Everyone who's fasted out there, you will relate to me when I tell you your energy levels are brilliant. You say, wow, I'm eating less, I'm fasting, but my energy level, it's like I'm on a drug. Neurotransmitters. You've got a boost in your neurotransmitter health. You've got a boost in your energy that feeds and powers the engines of your brain, which is your neurotransmitters. That comes from fasting. So less is more. Fasting can help you with the health of your neurotransmitters as well. Okay, let's come to the next point. So we also know sleep is responsible, your exercise. Meditation today is scientifically proven to increase serotonin and GABA. That's why when we meditate, we feel more focused, we feel more calm after we open our eyes post the meditation. We're so focused and so slow. Why? You just created so much of GABA and serotonin. That's why you feel good. So the more you meditate, the more you have the ability to change the physiology and the biology of your body, your cells, your genes. Gene expression and gene change can happen with meditation as well. That is why meditation is a drug. You eat for your body and you eat for your mind. Okay, let's spend a little more time on dopamine so you can relate to this a little bit better before we wind up. So we spoke about dopamine being the motivation molecule. Okay, how else can we get it? Set goals and then break them into milestones. So every time, let's say I get 100 patients a month, that's my goal, and I want to heal all of these 100 patients. Okay, on week 1, I heal 20 of them. It's a milestone. I must celebrate it. So I feel good because I'm achieving something. There's motivation. I set a goal and I'm winning. I'm achieving. So when you win, when you achieve, okay, you produce more dopamine. So celebrate small victories. Celebrate little things that happen. Break down your big goals into very small milestones so that you have a chance to celebrate. That will keep your dopamine high. Rewards also stimulate dopamine. That's why we all love rewards. Gifts. How many of us love to gift as well as receive gifts? There are some people who love gifting people. It raises their dopamine levels. And some people who like to get gifts. That raises your dopamine levels when you receive gifts and you give gifts. Appreciation is the quickest way. Appreciate someone without flattery, genuinely from your heart. When you appreciate someone, that person's dopamine levels are going to shoot right up, right up. So these are the ways. You'll notice a lot of people like to talk about themselves all the time, and they're so happy talking about themselves. Why? Because they produce more and more dopamine. Every time they talk, they're replaying the activity or the event in their mind, and they're speaking it out. So it makes them more and more happy. You know, when you have old parents at home, sometimes if you want to see how they can light up and feel happy, get them to tell you stories about their past, stories when they were young adults. I know we've heard those stories many, many, many times, but get them to tell it again and you will see how happy they feel. So sometimes if you're dealing with ailing parents, sick parents, whatever, or anyone for that matter, get them to talk about their achievements, get them to talk about things that went well for them in their life. And you are going to create dopamine right in front of you. So you can heal right then by increasing dopamine in them. So talking, achieving, appreciation, goals, big goals into small goals, celebrating small victories, making new goals. Like right now, today, you may just feel locked down. There's nothing to do. I'm depressed, whatever. Make a new goal. Make a new goal. You're going to get a six-pack. You're going to get a size 0 figure, whatever it is. You're going to learn to do a handstand. Make a goal and then try to work towards that because that will produce dopamine and will help you feel good and happy. Okay? What robs dopamine from us? Example, people who get addicted to video games, they move from one level to another and they can't give it up. Why? Every time there's challenge, you see there's challenge in video games, level 1 to level 2. So what's happening is we're producing more and more dopamine. When we try to increase dopamine with overstimulation from outside things, that's why you take an iPad away from a child, they're bored. They're bored. Nothing can stimulate them out because the iPad can generate so much of dopamine in them that the real world seems boring for them, which is why you got to limit iPad and gadget time with yourselves and with children. Today, people are saying, I'm addicted to serials on Netflix. It's all dopamine. Why can't you watch one a night? But we need to watch the second and the third and the fourth because we produce dopamine the way the first serial ended. Your dopamine's really high. And now if you don't watch it, it's going to come down. But you don't want to have that feeling of it coming down. So you watch the second and then you end up whole night binge watching Netflix or series. So you see, that is when dopamine becomes dangerous for us, because after a while, you will overstimulate your receptors and you'll stop producing it. And then you'll need more and more stimulation. Remember addiction? More and more alcohol to get the same feeling. More and more drugs, more and more mindless sex, more and more shopping, more and more Netflix, because you're wearing out your receptors and you need more stimulation to produce what it could produce previously. So that's what we call a dopamine hangover. That's why if I tell you don't know Netflix for a week, you're not going to like me. You're not going to do it, because what you have is a dopamine hangover. You'll have a sudden low because there's no stimulation from Netflix. But that is the actual normal. So be very careful how you stimulate dopamine. You can overuse dopamine, and that will lead you to sadness. That's why today most people, to feel happy, I just watch Netflix. Why? Because Netflix is the only thing that can produce dopamine. But we spoke about so many other things that can, right? From your food to appreciation to relationships to everything else. Let's move on to serotonin. So serotonin, when you have loneliness, when you have depression, serotonin levels are low. That's how people get into the wrong company. They get into extreme groups, gangs, communities, because communities can be positive or negative. Gangs can be positive or negative, but you attach yourself to a new community to try to stimulate what you have less of, serotonin. So we bind ourselves into cults, into rebellion, into all of these things. So you look at teenagers, they all kind of behave the same way. They conform to a certain identity of emotions, which is rebellion, all of that stuff. Parents should understand that. It's normal. It's very, very natural. Okay, they're going through hormone fluctuation, serotonin, dopamine all over the place. So you conform. That's why people get into the wrong company as well. When you find yourself unhealthy attention seeking, you're trying to seek attention in an unhealthy way, which means you put yourself down for people to like you. You please people by putting yourself down. That's unhealthy attention seeking. That means you have low serotonin levels, and that's really, really something that just needs to change. Now, how can we change it? One of the simplest ways to boost serotonin is through reflection. When you look at old photos that made you happy, old holidays, old pictures when you were a baby, when you were a child, you suddenly find an old college photo, or you think of your old achievements, you think of your life moments where you were proud, you start boosting serotonin automatically. So you see there are natural ways to boost your serotonin. So we have achievements, we have photographs. Vitamin D, very, very important. Getting sunlight can boost your serotonin, which is why in the circadian way of living, I tell you all, get out in the morning, look at the sky, look at the sun, get some sunlight on you if you can. And if you have a deficiency, fix it. Giving back serotonin from your heart, not to show off. When you give back or you give from your heart, your serotonin is boosted and you want to do more and more and you want to give more and more. Gratitude. When you practice true gratitude, which is why I say end your day with gratitude. Gratitude makes you reflect on the things that you have well in your life that you're grateful for. So you see reflection, thinking, offering gratitude, serotonin boosters. Drugs can't do that for you, but these things can. Let's talk about oxytocin. We've all heard about oxytocin. Some people call it the cuddle hormone, the love hormone. Oxytocin is required for us to relax, for us to feel intimate with people, to build relationships of trust, bonds, strong relationships. We need oxytocin. So some people who have genetic disorders and cannot produce oxytocin, they don't understand what love is. They don't understand relationships. So one partner may be trying to give all the love, but the other partner doesn't respond. It doesn't seem normal for them to respond. Could be a neurotransmitter issue. So never judge someone without checking completely. Okay? When you orgasm, when a man or a woman orgasms, we produce oxytocin, which is why you like orgasms. And that's why you like lovemaking or sex, because that's what gives you orgasms. Of course, respectfully and done the right way. A woman also produces oxytocin at childbirth. It is done so that the woman, the mother, and the baby can bond. Oxytocin is produced when the baby's lips latch onto the nipple of the mother, creating a bonding effect that can only happen if there is oxytocin present. So it's called a cuddle hormone because that's the importance of human touch, a hug, holding someone, holding someone's hand, sometimes not even speaking words, but just embracing someone, holding their hands. This creates oxytocin. So, you may hold, let's say you're a guy and you hold a girl's hand, okay? You will feel intimate with that guy. I'm not saying sexually. You may, I don't know about that. a lot of people, think that, oh, this is love. No, it's not love. It's only oxytocin. So don't fall in love blindly and stupidly at the same time. Very, very important to understand that when there is touch, so, your first kiss or whatever it is, or a touch or whatever, an intimate touch or anything, can make you bond with that person because of oxytocin. Okay? It doesn't have to be love. So all people, oh, love at first sight, love at whatever, may be true. I don't know about that. But when you start with physical touch and intimacy, you still want to take your time through that initial phase of the relationship. It does not have to equal love. Let me make that very, very clear. It is only a hormone that gives you that feeling of love, but it doesn't mean the other person has to love you or you have to love them. Very important. Oxytocin is very important for your immune system and your cardiovascular health. That is why we tell, in the medical field, in the professional field, we hold the hands of our patient. Okay, we pat them on their back. We hold their forehead because human touch is very, very important for the healing process. Immunity, cardiovascular health. Oxytocin can also be produced when we give and when we receive. When we give gifts, surprises, we receive gifts, we receive surprises, that can produce oxytocin as well. One more hormone before we end, the endorphins. When you work out and you feel really good, those are your endorphins. So basically, endorphins are produced for us to change the perception of pain in the human body. So when I look at my notes, it is released in the response to pain and stress. So you would say, but Luke, exercise. Yes, exercise is stress on the body. Always remember that. That's why I never overtrain. When you exercise, it's a negative stress on the body with a positive outcome. That's why we should exercise. But you feel so good because you're putting your body through that running constantly. It is weighing down on your knees and every other part of your body to alleviate the symptoms of pain produces endorphins. And that's why you get a runner's high, a second wind, or your exercise makes you feel so good. It's in a way similar to morphine. Okay, it's similar to morphine. It's similar to a sedative, which is analgesic in state, which means it cuts out the perception of pain. It's as simple as that. It works with your receptors. It works with your receptors and cuts the perception of pain, diminishes the perception of pain. So those are endorphins. Now, exercise produces it. Laughter produces it. So watching comedy, listening to jokes, watching something funny, spending time with your friends and laughing, these are great for your endorphins. They are fantastic for your endorphins, which is why we want people to feel good and watch funny videos and laugh when they're sick. That is what we mean by laughter is the best medicine, because laughter can produce endorphins. Endorphins can diminish your pain. When we have the absence of pain, we automatically feel happier and we feel we're getting better. What else can produce endorphins? Expecting something good to happen, okay? Like you've planned a beautiful holiday and there are 5 days left and then 4 days left and 3 days left. You're producing endorphins in expectation. So I always tell people, expect the best. There is no point expecting the worst. It gets us nothing. What do we get out of expecting the worst? So we might as well channel all of our energy into expecting the best, because that increases our endorphins. Also, what really works, and I was telling my team this morning, when it comes to pain, because pain is real for people going through cancer, accident victims, all of that stuff. Always keep essential oils, lavender and vanilla, okay? And when you're in pain, infuse these oils, burn them so you can smell them or inhale them, because vanilla oil and lavender oil works for boosting your endorphins. And the foods that can also boost your endorphins are, again, chocolate and spicy foods. Spicy foods can also help you diminish the perception of pain by producing endorphins and also help you feeling happy. Of course, if you have digestive issues, ulcers, all of that stuff, please make an informed decision. And that is all I have when it comes to your neurotransmitters, the way you feel, depression, and so many things out there. So now when you reflect on this, you understand that it comes down to the food that you eat, your sleep quality, the way you handle your emotions, and your exercise. It's as simple as that. So before you jump onto medication, before you judge people around you for behaving anyway. So categorize people. Now, I do judge a lot of people. When I'm talking to them, whatever, I'm saying that, this person is displaying this behavior. Could be less dopamine, could be too much, could be less serotonin. My mind is always working that way. So I'm not judging their character and their personality, because it is true. A lot of us are living with an imbalance of these neurotransmitters. And that explains weird moods. That explains mood fluctuations in women and men. And then that in turn, when you have a low, you eat the wrong food. So you see, everything comes down to what is happening up here. your thoughts, your emotions, your neurotransmitters. So focus, start living with awareness. How do you feel? And based on how you're feeling, first look at your food. If your food is all over the place, your neurotransmitters don't have the right fuel. You are going to feel that way. A new relationship isn't going to fix most of your problems. Okay, more money isn't going to fix most of your problems. Newer relationships, jumping from one partner to another is not going to fix your problems if you have an imbalance in your neurotransmitters. Always remember that. That's why everyone says that, oh, the grass is always green on the other side. But when they get on the other side, they're happy for a while. And after that, the grass somewhere else is green on the other side. You have an imbalance in your neurotransmitters. You don't know how to be happy where you are. And it's not your fault. It's because you have an imbalance in the very hormones and the very neurotransmitters that are required for your physiological state of happiness, well-being, feeling good, feeling motivated, feeling accomplished, feeling fulfilled in your heart. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you for your time.